In Florida, even the lizards have a better tan than me. But at least I had a wife who pretended to love me, and a condo I couldn't afford. My name is James Mitchell, and I'm a lawyer who actually believes in justice, which makes me about as popular as a hurricane warning during spring break. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The Gulf breeze carried the scent of salt and expensive sunscreen through our Sarasota high-rise as I watched my wife Claire pose for her 1,000th Instagram photo of the week. She was what people called an influencer, though I never could figure out what exactly she influenced besides my credit card statements. "Hold on, babe," she said without looking at me, adjusting her bikini for the camera. "The lighting is perfect right now." I sipped my coffee and watched her work. Claire had turned our balcony into a professional photo studio, complete with ring lights and backdrop screens. Her followers, all 200,000 of them, hung on every filtered moment of her authentic lifestyle. "Don't you have actual work to do?" I asked, checking my phone for messages from my law partner Omar. She finally looked at me, those green eyes flashing with irritation. "This is work, James. Maybe if you understood social media better, your firm would have more than 2 clients." That stung, but she wasn't entirely wrong. Omar and I ran a small practice specializing in personal injury cases. We were good lawyers, but terrible marketers. Claire, on the other hand, could sell ice to Eskimos, and frequently did, promoting everything from diet supplements to luxury handbags. "Sorry," I said, meaning it. "I know you work hard." Her expression softened slightly. "I'm meeting with Elliot today about expanding the brand. He thinks we could get into fashion consulting." Elliot Brennan, her so-called business manager. The guy drove a yellow Lamborghini and wore more jewelry than a mob wife. Everything about him screamed sleaze, from his spray tan to his designer suits that probably cost more than most people's cars. "Right," I said. "Elliot." Claire's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and smiled, the kind of smile she used to give me. "He's here. I'll be back late. Don't wait up." She kissed my cheek, grabbed her designer purse, and headed for the door. I watched her go, noting how she'd changed into a dress that showed more skin than a medical textbook. My phone rang. "Omar, please tell me you're reviewing the Henderson case files," he said without preamble. "Good morning to you too, partner." I walked back inside, closing the sliding door behind me. "And yes, I'm on it." "Good, because Mrs. Henderson called 3 times already. She's worried the insurance company is going to lowball her." I settled into my home office, a converted bedroom that Claire had grudgingly allowed me to claim. The walls were lined with law books and case files, a stark contrast to the Instagram-ready perfection of the rest of our place. "They always try to lowball," I said, pulling up the Henderson file on my laptop. "That's why they pay us the big bucks." Omar laughed. "Big bucks? James, we split a tuna sandwich for lunch yesterday." Details. I scrolled through medical reports and insurance correspondence. Mrs. Henderson had been rear-ended by a drunk driver, resulting in 2 herniated discs and months of physical therapy. The insurance company was offering $30,000 for pain and suffering. It was insulting. "Speaking of details," Omar continued, "how are things with Claire? You sounded off yesterday." I paused, considering how to answer. Omar was my best friend as well as my business partner. We'd known each other since law school, where we'd bonded over being the only 2 students who actually read the assigned cases instead of relying on study guides. "She's been distant lately," I admitted. "Always working, always with that Elliot guy." "The one who looks like he sells drugs to teenagers?" "That's the one." I leaned back in my chair, staring at a water stain on the ceiling. "I'm probably being paranoid." "Probably," Omar agreed, "but your paranoia has saved our asses in court more than once." After we hung up, I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept wandering. Claire had been acting strange for months. Late nights, secretive phone calls, sudden business trips that never seemed to generate any actual business. And then there was Elliot, always lurking around with his gold chains and predatory smile. I was still brooding when my mother called. "James, honey, how are you?" Marcy Mitchell was a retired nurse who'd raised me single-handedly after my father died in a construction accident when I was 12. She had zero tolerance for bullshit and could spot a lie from 3 counties away. "I'm fine, Mom. Just working." "Uh-huh. And how's that wife of yours?" I could hear the skepticism in her voice. Mom had never warmed up to Claire, claiming she was all flash and no substance. At the time, I'd thought she was being unfairly judgmental. Now I wasn't so sure. "She's fine too, building her brand." "Building her brand," Mom repeated flatly. "In my day, we called that showing off." Despite everything, I smiled. "Times change, Mom. People don't. A leopard doesn't change its spots, and a gold digger doesn't change her targets." "Claire isn't a gold digger." "If you say so, honey. But if she ever gives you reason to doubt that, you call me. I didn't raise you to be anybody's fool." After she hung up, I sat in the quiet condo, listening to the distant sound of traffic and seagulls. The place felt empty, without Claire's constant chatter and photo shoots. Maybe that should have been comforting, but it wasn't. I decided to surprise her with dinner. She'd mentioned wanting to try that new seafood place downtown, and maybe a romantic evening would help us reconnect. I made reservations for 8 o'clock and sent her a text. Her response came an hour later. "Rain check, business dinner running late. XO." I stared at the message, something cold settling in my stomach. It was barely 3 in the afternoon. How late could a business lunch run? I called the restaurant to cancel our reservation, then found myself doing something I'd never done before, checking Claire's social media. Her Instagram story showed her at some upscale bar, laughing with Elliot and a group of people I didn't recognize. The timestamp said 30 minutes ago. So much for a business dinner. I spent the evening alone, ordering Chinese takeout and reviewing case files. When Claire finally came home at nearly midnight, she was slightly drunk and overly affectionate, the way people get when they're overcompensating for guilt. "Sorry about dinner," she said, draping herself over my shoulders as I sat at my desk. "Elliot introduced me to some potential sponsors. Big opportunities, babe." She smelled like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. "No problem," I lied. "How did it go?" "Amazing. There's this fashion brand that wants to partner with me for their fall campaign. Could be huge money." She was animated, excited in a way I hadn't seen in months. But her enthusiasm felt performative, like she was trying to convince herself as much as me. "That's great," I said. "When do you find out?" "Soon. Elliot thinks it's basically a done deal." She kissed the top of my head. "I'm exhausted. Coming to bed?" I looked at the case files spread across my desk. "In a few minutes." She nodded and headed for the bedroom. I heard the shower start, then stop 20 minutes later. By the time I finally joined her, she was already asleep, or pretending to be. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. The woman beside me felt like a stranger. When had that happened? When had we become 2 people sharing a bed, but living separate lives? My phone buzzed with a text message. Claire's phone, forgotten on her nightstand, lit up at the same time. The message was from Elliot. "Thanks for tonight. Can't wait for tomorrow." I stared at both phones in the darkness, my heart hammering. There could be innocent explanations. Business meetings, professional collaboration, perfectly reasonable reasons for a business manager to text his client at 1 in the morning. But I'd been a lawyer long enough to know the difference between reasonable doubt and willful blindness. I got up and walked to the balcony, stepping into the humid Florida night. The Gulf stretched out before me, dark and infinite. Somewhere out there, people were living honest lives, sleeping peacefully next to partners who loved them. I used to think I was one of them. At 4 in the morning, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a text to me from Claire. Something came up. I'll explain soon. I looked at her side of the bed. Empty. I typed back, "No need. Stay with him. You're single now." 20 minutes later, she was desperately ringing our doorbell, tears streaming down her face. I took my time answering the door. Let her ring. Let her panic. Let her wonder if I was even home, or if I'd already changed the locks and moved on with my life. When I finally opened it, Claire looked like a disaster movie. Her makeup had run in black streaks down her cheeks. Her hair was disheveled, and she was still wearing the same dress from her business dinner. She'd clearly driven here in a hurry. Her car was parked crooked in the visitor's spot, hazard lights still blinking. "James, please, let me explain." "You left your dignity in the elevator," I said calmly, stepping aside to let her in. She rushed past me, spinning around in our living room like a trapped animal. "It's not what you think!" I closed the door and leaned against it, studying her. Even in her panicked state, Claire was beautiful. It was the kind of beauty that made people stupid, myself included, apparently. "You're right," I said. "It's worse." "How can you say that? You don't even know what happened." I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water, taking my time. The silence stretched between us like a wire about to snap. "Let me guess," I said finally. "You and Elliot were working late on your brand expansion. Things got emotional. Maybe you had a few drinks. One thing led to another, and suddenly you found yourself in his bed, wondering how you got there." Claire's face went white. "James, or maybe," I continued, "this has been going on for months. All those late nights, those mysterious business trips, those secretive phone calls. Maybe you've been playing house with your business manager while I've been playing the fool." She started crying again, but these weren't the desperate tears from the hallway. These were angry tears, the kind people cry when they're caught and cornered. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under," she said. "Building a brand, maintaining an image, competing with thousands of other influencers. Elliot gets it. He supports my dreams." "And I don't? You tolerate them. There's a difference." That hit harder than I expected. Maybe because there was truth in it. I'd never fully understood Claire's world, never taken her career as seriously as she wanted me to. But that didn't justify what she'd done. "So you fucked him," I said bluntly. She flinched. "It wasn't like that." "What was it like, Claire? Help me understand." She sat down on our couch, the one we'd picked out together 2 years ago, arguing about fabric and color like it mattered, like we were building something permanent. "He listens to me," she said quietly. "He believes in me. He makes me feel important." "And I don't?" "You make me feel safe. That's different." I set down my water glass, afraid I might throw it. "So you decided to trade safe for exciting. How's that working out for you?" "I never meant for this to happen. I love you, James. I do." "But you love him too." She didn't answer, which was answer enough. I walked to our bedroom and started pulling clothes from my dresser. Claire followed, watching as I stuffed shirts and pants into a duffel bag. "What are you doing?" "Leaving. This is your place now. You and Elliot can play house all you want." "James, please. We can work through this. Couples therapy, counseling, whatever you want." I stopped packing and looked at her. "Do you want to work through this?" "Yes." "Then call him. Right now. Tell him it's over." Claire's phone was in her hand, but she didn't dial. She just stared at it like it might bite her. "I can't," she whispered. "Then we're done." I finished packing and headed for the door. Claire grabbed my arm. "Where will you go?" "Omar's couch, a hotel. Somewhere that doesn't smell like betrayal." "James, please." I pulled free and walked out, leaving her crying in our bedroom. Our former bedroom. I drove to Omar's apartment in downtown Sarasota, a modest place above his uncle's restaurant. It was nearly 6 in the morning, but Omar answered his door like he'd been expecting me. "Rough night?" he asked, taking in my duffel bag and probably my expression. "Claire's been fucking her business manager." Omar stepped aside to let me in. His place was small but comfortable, decorated with family photos and law school memorabilia. It smelled like coffee and his uncle's famous Cuban sandwiches. "I'm sorry, man. That sucks." "Yeah, it does." He poured me coffee without asking if I wanted any. Omar had always been good at reading situations, knowing what people needed before they asked. "You want to talk about it?" I told him everything. The late nights, the secretive behavior, the text messages, the confrontation. Omar listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding or making sympathetic noises. "So, what's your next move?" he asked when I finished. "Divorce, fast and clean." "You sure about that? Maybe you should give it a few days. Let the shock wear off." I shook my head. "I've been in shock for months, Omar. I just didn't realize it. This is clarity." He studied me over his coffee cup. "Okay, but if you're going to do this, do it right. Don't let emotion make you stupid." "What do you mean?" "I mean, Claire's not just your wife. She's a public figure with a brand to protect. She's got money, connections, and a social media platform. If this gets ugly, she could make your life very difficult." He was right. Claire had nearly 250,000 followers who hung on her every word. If she decided to paint me as the villain in our marriage, it could destroy my reputation and my law practice. So what do you suggest? Document everything. Keep records. And for God's sake, don't do anything that could be construed as harassment or stalking. The last thing you need is a restraining order. I spent the morning at Omar's, making phone calls and starting the divorce process. By noon, I'd retained a family law attorney, opened a new bank account, and changed the passwords on all my personal accounts. My phone rang constantly, Claire calling, texting, leaving voicemails that ranged from apologetic to angry to desperate. I ignored them all. Around 2 o'clock, Omar suggested we grab lunch. We walked to his uncle's restaurant, a hole-in-the-wall Cuban place that served the best sandwiches in Sarasota. The owner, Miguel, greeted Omar with a bear hug and me with suspicious eyes. "This the one with the cheating wife?" he asked Omar in accented English. "Miguel? What? It's not a secret. The whole neighborhood knows. She was here yesterday with some guy in a fancy car making out like teenagers." I felt my face flush. "She was here?" "Right outside," Miguel confirmed, pointing to the sidewalk. "Yellow sports car, lots of noise, very disrespectful." Omar shot his uncle a warning look, but the damage was done. Claire and Elliot had been flaunting their affair in my friend's neighborhood, in front of people who knew me. The humiliation was complete. We ate in relative silence, Omar occasionally trying to lighten the mood with lawyer jokes or gossip from the courthouse. But my mind was elsewhere, calculating the full scope of my wife's betrayal. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Elliot. We need to talk." I showed the message to Omar, who frowned. "Don't respond," he said. "Nothing good can come from engaging with this guy." But I was past caring about what was good for me. I typed back, "Talk to my lawyer." The response came immediately. "Claire's a mess. She really loves you, man. Don't throw away your marriage over a mistake." I stared at the phone, rage building in my chest like pressure in a boiler. "A mistake," I muttered. "James," I was already typing. "Fucking my wife for months isn't a mistake. It's a choice, and now I'm making mine." Omar grabbed my phone before I could send anything else. "Stop. You're going to regret this." I already regret it. I regret trusting her. I regret believing in her. I regret wasting 2 years of my life on someone who was shopping for an upgrade. "Then don't waste any more time on revenge. File your papers, split your assets, and move on." But moving on felt like letting them win. Claire and Elliot were probably laughing about the situation right now, planning their future while I nursed my wounds on my friend's couch. That afternoon, I went back to the condo to get more of my things. Claire was gone, but evidence of her panic was everywhere. Tissues scattered on the floor, makeup spilled across the bathroom counter, clothes thrown around the bedroom like she'd changed outfits multiple times. I was packing my law books when I found it. A red thong wedged between the mattress and box spring on what used to be my side of the bed. It definitely wasn't Claire's size. Too small, too cheap, too desperate. I held it up to the light, studying it like evidence in a case, which, I supposed, it was. My phone rang. Mom. How are you holding up, honey? You heard? Omar called me. I'm sorry, James, I really am. I sat down on the bed, still holding the thong. You were right about her. I wish I hadn't been. But for what it's worth, this says nothing about you and everything about her. Doesn't feel that way. I know, but feelings aren't facts. You're a good man, James. You deserve better than what she gave you. After we hung up, I finished packing and took one last look around the condo. This had been my home for 2 years, the place where I'd thought I was building a life with someone I loved. Now it felt like a crime scene. I was loading boxes into my car when I saw them, Claire and Elliot, pulling into the parking garage in his ridiculous yellow Lamborghini. They were laughing about something, completely oblivious to my presence. I watched them get out of the car, watched Elliot put his hand on the small of Claire's back, watched her lean into him like they'd been together for years instead of months. They looked happy, comfortable, like a real couple. I got in my car and drove away, but not before taking a picture of them together, just in case I needed it later. Back at Omar's, I showed him the thong and told him about seeing Claire and Elliot together. Jesus, James. She's not even trying to hide it anymore. Why should she? She got what she wanted. What are you going to do? I looked at the red thong, still in my hand like a piece of evidence. I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly who Claire Mitchell really is. Omar's expression grew worried. What does that mean? It means I'm done being the nice guy. It means I'm done protecting her reputation while she destroys mine. It means the gloves are coming off. James, she wants to be an influencer? Fine. Let's see how much influence she has when people know the truth about her. I pulled out my phone and started typing. The first shot across the bow was subtle. I'd learned enough about Claire's world to know that influencers lived and died by perception. Their carefully curated images were more fragile than they appeared, built on a foundation of likes, follows, and brand partnerships that could evaporate overnight. I started with a simple Instagram post from my rarely used account, a photo of our wedding day with the caption, 2 years ago, I married my best friend. Today, I learned that loyalty is a rare commodity. Moving on. Lessons learned. Within an hour, the post had dozens of comments from friends, colleagues, and acquaintances expressing sympathy and asking what had happened. I didn't respond to any of them, but I didn't need to. The speculation was already beginning. Omar found me at his kitchen table, scrolling through responses on my phone. This is dangerous territory, he warned, sitting down across from me. Is it illegal? No, but is it defamatory? Not technically, but James, then it's fair game. I set down my phone and looked at him. She destroyed my marriage in public, Omar. Yesterday, I watched her making out with her boyfriend in your uncle's neighborhood. She's not even trying to be discreet. So you're going to destroy her back? I'm going to tell the truth. There's a difference. My phone buzzed with a call from Claire. I declined it, but she immediately called back. And again. On the 4th attempt, I answered. What? James, what are you doing? People are asking questions. Are they? How inconvenient for you. Please, can we just talk? In person, like adults? Adults don't cheat on their spouses, Claire. Adults don't lie for months and then play victim when they get caught. I know I hurt you. You didn't hurt me. You humiliated me. There's a difference. I hung up and immediately blocked her number. But I couldn't block the flood of messages from mutual friends, family members, and even some of Claire's followers who had somehow found my contact information. My mother called around dinner time. "I saw your post," she said without preamble. And I'm proud of you for not letting her control the narrative. But be careful, honey. Wounded animals are dangerous." She was right. By evening, Claire had posted her own Instagram story, a tearful video where she talked about going through a difficult time and asked for privacy and understanding from her followers. She didn't mention the affair, of course, but she didn't need to. The implication was clear. Her husband was being unreasonable, and she was the victim. The comments section was a battlefield. Claire's loyal followers attacked me as controlling and unsupportive, while my friends and family defended me and hinted at the real reason for our separation. It was ugly and public, and exactly what I'd hoped for. But Claire wasn't done. The next morning, I woke to find that she'd posted a series of photos from our relationship: romantic dinners, vacation trips, quiet moments at home, with captions about cherishing the good times and fighting for love. It was masterfully manipulative. Without saying a word about the affair, she'd positioned herself as the wife trying to save her marriage, while I was the cold, unforgiving husband who'd given up at the first sign of trouble. Her follower count actually increased overnight. "She's good," Omar admitted, reading through her posts. "Evil, but good." "She's not that good," I said, pulling up a contact on my phone. "Who are you calling?" "Someone who knows where all the bodies are buried." Ria Martinez answered on the second ring. She'd been Claire's best friend since college, her maid of honor at our wedding, and her frequent partner in social media schemes. She was also, according to Claire's own drunken confession at last year's Christmas party, the only person who knew about all of Claire's indiscretions over the years. "James? Oh my God. I heard about—" "Cut the shit, Ria. We both know you knew about Elliot." Silence. Then, "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really? So you didn't know that Claire's been fucking her business manager for the past 6 months? You didn't help her come up with alibis for her late nights and business trips? You didn't take photos for her Instagram while she was off playing house with another man?" More silence. "Here's what's going to happen," I continued. "You're going to stop enabling her. You're going to stop helping her manipulate the narrative. And if I find out you're feeding her information about what I'm doing or planning, I'll make sure everyone in your social circle knows exactly what kind of friend you really are." "You can't threaten me." "I'm not threatening you. I'm promising you. Claire made her choice. Now you get to make yours." I hung up before she could respond. That afternoon, I implemented phase 2 of my plan. I'd spent the morning researching Claire's brand partnerships and sponsorship deals, making a list of every company that paid her to promote their products. Then I started making phone calls. I didn't lie to any of them. I didn't make false accusations or defamatory statements. I simply identified myself as Claire Mitchell's husband and asked to speak with their marketing departments about concerns regarding brand alignment and public perception. Most of the conversations were brief and professional. I explained that Claire and I were divorcing due to her extramarital affair and that there might be some negative publicity in the coming weeks. I suggested they might want to review their contracts and consider whether continued association with Claire was in their best interests. I didn't ask them to drop her. I didn't demand they take action. I just gave them information and let them draw their own conclusions. By the end of the day, 3 of her smaller sponsors had quietly ended their partnerships. Claire called from Elliot's phone that evening screaming, "You're destroying my career! You're sabotaging my livelihood!" "I'm protecting my reputation," I said calmly. "Something you should have thought about before you decided to fuck your way to the top. I could sue you for this." "For what? Telling the truth? Good luck with that." "James, please, I know you're angry, but this is my life we're talking about. My career. Everything I've worked for. You should have thought of that before you threw away everything we worked for." I hung up and turned off my phone, but the damage was already spreading beyond my direct intervention. Word of Claire's affair was leaking through her social circle, and her carefully crafted image was beginning to crack. Someone, I suspected Rhea despite my warning, had leaked screenshots of a group chat where Claire had bragged about Elliot's stamina and made disparaging comments about my performance in bed. The screenshots were posted to a gossip blog that specialized in influencer drama, and within hours they were circulating across social media. Claire's comment sections became war zones. Her follower count started dropping. More sponsors quietly ended their relationships with her. But the real blow came from an unexpected source. I was having coffee with Omar the next morning when my phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged me in a post on Instagram. I opened the app to find a video that made my blood run cold. It was security footage from the lobby of our condo building, showing Claire and Elliot in a passionate embrace by the elevators. The timestamp showed it was from 3 weeks ago, a Tuesday afternoon when Claire had told me she was at a doctor's appointment. The video had been posted by an anonymous account with the caption, "When your husband is at work, but your boyfriend isn't. Cheating wife busted." Holy shit, Omar breathed, looking over my shoulder. Who posted this? I have no idea. But I had a pretty good guess. Our building's security guard, Marcus, had always been friendly with me. He'd made small talk about sports and asked about my cases. He'd also made it clear that he didn't think much of Claire's constant parade of business meetings with various men. The video went viral within hours. Claire's followers were abandoning her in droves, and the few sponsors she had left were scrambling to distance themselves from the scandal. She posted a desperate Instagram story that evening, crying and claiming the video was taken out of context and that she was the victim of a malicious campaign by her vindictive ex-husband. But the damage was done. Her carefully constructed influencer empire was crumbling, and everyone could see it happening in real time. My phone rang. Elliot. "This has gone far enough," he said without preamble. "Has it? Claire's getting death threats. People are showing up at her father's house. This is harassment. This is consequences. I'm warning you, back off. Stop this campaign against her, or I'll make you regret it." I laughed. "You'll make me regret it? What are you going to do, fuck my wife? Too late." "I have connections, Mitchell. People who can make your life very difficult. Bring them on. I'm a lawyer, remember? I eat tough guys like you for breakfast. We'll see about that." He hung up, but his threat didn't worry me. Elliot was all flash and no substance, a wannabe tough guy who'd never faced real consequences for his actions. That was about to change. I'd been doing research on Elliot Brennan, and what I'd found was fascinating. Despite his expensive car and designer clothes, he was leveraged to the hilt. The Lamborghini was leased, his condo was mortgaged beyond its value, and he owed money to several creditors. More interesting was his business history. Elliot had been involved in several failed ventures over the years, a nightclub that went bankrupt, a restaurant that closed after health code violations, a talent agency that folded amid accusations of financial impropriety. He was a serial entrepreneur with a talent for spending other people's money and a gift for disappearing when the bills came due. But his current venture, managing social media influencers, seemed to be working. He represented several successful personalities, taking a percentage of their earnings in exchange for booking deals and managing their brands, including Claire's brand. I spent the evening making more phone calls, this time to Elliot's other clients. I introduced myself as an attorney investigating potential financial irregularities in influencer management contracts. I asked careful questions about payment schedules, contract terms, and whether they'd experienced any problems with delayed or missing payments. The picture that emerged was troubling. Several of Elliot's clients hadn't been paid for recent campaigns. Others complained that promised deals had fallen through without explanation. A few mentioned that Elliot had asked them for short-term loans to cover business expenses. It seemed that Elliot Brennan was running a shell game, using new client money to pay old debts, while skimming off the top for his lifestyle expenses. And now that Claire's income was drying up, his house of cards was starting to collapse. I was still researching when Omar came home from a late dinner with his girlfriend. "You look like a man with a plan," he observed, sitting down beside me. "I am. Care to share?" I showed him what I'd found about Elliot's business practices and financial situation. "Jesus," Omar whistled. "This guy's a walking fraud case." "That's what I'm thinking." "So what's your next move?" I smiled for the first time in days. "I'm going to help Karma along." The next morning, I made an anonymous tip to the Florida Department of Financial Services about potential unlicensed investment activity. I also sent copies of my research to a reporter who specialized in business fraud cases. Then I sat back and waited for the dominoes to fall. They didn't take long. The reporter, Sarah Chen from the Tampa Bay Business Journal, called me within hours of receiving my anonymous tip. She was sharp, thorough, and very interested in the story of a social media manager who might be running an unlicensed investment scheme with his client's money. "I can't reveal my sources," I told her during our carefully orchestrated phone call, "but I can confirm that I've spoken with several of Mr. Brennan's clients who have concerns about missing payments and questionable business practices. Are you willing to go on the record?" "Not at this time, but if you dig into his business history, I think you'll find some interesting patterns." Sarah was already ahead of me. She'd been investigating influencer marketing schemes for months and had been looking for a way into the story. Elliot Brennan was exactly the kind of target she'd been hoping to find. While Sarah worked her sources, I focused on the more personal aspects of my revenge campaign. Claire's public image was in ruins, but she still had one major asset: her relationship with her wealthy father. Robert Ashford owned a chain of luxury hotels across the Southeast and had always been protective of the family name. He'd never particularly liked me. I wasn't rich enough, successful enough, or connected enough for his precious daughter, but he'd tolerated me as long as I made Claire happy. Now that Claire was publicly humiliating herself, and by extension the Ashford name, I suspected his tolerance might be wearing thin. I crafted a careful email to Robert, attaching screenshots of Claire's leaked group chat messages, the security footage from our building, and several of her more desperate social media posts from the past week. "Dear Robert," I wrote, "I thought you should be aware of the situation with Claire, as it may impact your business interests. As you can see from the attached materials, her recent behavior has attracted significant negative attention. I'm sure you'll want to take appropriate measures to protect the Ashford brand." I signed it, respectfully, James Mitchell, and sent it from my law firm's official email address. The response came within 2 hours. "James, thank you for bringing this to my attention. I will handle the situation with Claire. I'm sorry things didn't work out between you two. You're a good man, and she's a fool for throwing away what you had. Robert." That afternoon, Claire's Instagram went dark. No new posts, no stories, no activity at all. Her website showed a message saying she was taking a break to focus on personal matters. Omar found me that evening, grinning like a Cheshire cat. Guess who just got served with a cease and desist order from the Florida Department of Financial Services? Elliot? Elliot. Seems someone tipped them off about unlicensed investment activity. They're freezing his business accounts pending investigation. That's terrible news, I said, not bothering to hide my smile. Gets better. Sarah Chen's article comes out tomorrow. She interviewed 6 of his clients, and none of them had nice things to say. I felt a warm glow of satisfaction spreading through my chest. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I felt like I was winning, but I wasn't done yet. The next phase of my plan required some creativity. Claire and Elliot had humiliated me publicly, flaunting their affair in front of people who knew me. Now, it was time to return the favor. I spent the weekend planning what I privately called the divorce party. If Claire wanted to make our personal business public, I'd give her exactly what she asked for. I rented the community room at our condo complex for the following Saturday evening, officially booking it as a legal networking event. I hired a catering company, ordered an open bar, and sent invitations to everyone in our mutual social circle. The invitation was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive subtlety. Join James Mitchell for a celebration of new beginnings and the end of false partnerships. Come toast to honesty, integrity, and the courage to start over when the people you trusted most prove unworthy of that trust. Saturday, 7 p.m., Bayfront Towers Community Room. Open bar, heavy appetizers, and all the truth you can handle. I also hired a skywriter for Saturday afternoon, having them spell out honesty wins over Sarasota Beach during peak weekend hours. The response to my invitations was overwhelming. Friends, colleagues, neighbors, even some of Claire's former sponsors confirmed their attendance. Word spread through social media, and soon people I barely knew were asking if they could come. By Thursday, I had over 100 confirmed guests. That's when Elliot made his move. I was leaving the courthouse after a hearing when I found him waiting by my car. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wrinkled clothes, the kind of desperate edge that comes from watching your world collapse in real time. "We need to talk," he said. "No, we don't." "You're destroying innocent people." I laughed. "Innocent? That's rich, coming from you." "Claire made a mistake, but she doesn't deserve this. The death threats, the harassment, having her father cut her off." "Her father cut her off?" I interrupted, genuinely surprised. I'd expected Robert to be angry, but I hadn't thought he'd go that far. "Completely. Froze her trust fund, kicked her out of the family condo, won't take her calls. She's staying in some shitty motel, crying herself to sleep every night." For a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy. Then I remembered the red thong, the security footage, the months of lies and manipulation. "She made her choices," I said. "Now she gets to live with them." "And what about me? That reporter is destroying my reputation. The state is freezing my accounts. I'm facing criminal charges because of your lies." "I never lied about anything. I just helped the truth come to light." Elliot stepped closer, and I could smell desperation on him like cheap cologne. "Call off your party. Stop talking to reporters. End this crusade and I'll disappear. Claire will disappear. You'll never see either of us again." "Counter-offer," I said, unlocking my car. "Go fuck yourself." I started to get in my car, but Elliot grabbed my arm. "I'm serious, Mitchell. End this, or I'll end you." I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back at his face. "Are you threatening me?" "I'm promising you," I smiled. "Good. I was hoping you'd do something stupid." I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. I'd been recording our entire conversation. "Threatening a lawyer is a felony in Florida," I said conversationally. "Especially when it's recorded. I'd say you just bought yourself another legal problem." Elliot's face went white. He released my arm and stepped back. "You're insane." "I'm thorough. There's a difference." I got in my car and drove away, leaving him standing in the parking lot. But I could see him in my rearview mirror, pulling out his phone and making a frantic call, probably to Claire. Saturday arrived with perfect Florida weather, sunny, breezy, and warm enough for the community pool area to be crowded with families and weekend visitors. My party was scheduled for 7 p.m., but people started arriving early, drawn by curiosity and the promise of free drinks. I'd hired a photographer to document the evening, officially for professional networking purposes, but really to capture the moment of my public vindication. The guest list was a who's who of Sarasota's legal, business, and social communities. Judges, lawyers, business owners, reporters, and dozens of people who'd watched Claire's public meltdown with fascination and horror. Omar arrived early to help me set up, bringing his girlfriend Maria and his uncle Miguel. "This is either brilliant or insane," Omar said, surveying the crowd. "Why not both?" At exactly 7:30, just as the party was hitting its stride, Claire arrived. She looked nothing like the polished influencer who'd once commanded 250,000 followers. Her hair was unwashed, her clothes were wrinkled, and she had the hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't slept in days. The party went quiet as she walked into the room. Everyone turned to stare, phones coming out to capture the moment. "James," she said, her voice barely audible, "please, can we talk?" I was standing by the bar, surrounded by friends and colleagues. The photographer was discreetly capturing everything. This was exactly what I'd hoped for. Claire, desperate and defeated, begging for mercy in front of everyone who'd watched her destroy our marriage. "Sure," I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "What would you like to talk about? Your affair? Your lies? The way you humiliated me for months while I was stupid enough to trust you?" Tears started streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. I know I hurt you. But please, you have to stop this. I've lost everything. My career, my family, my friends. I have nothing left. You have Elliot." "No, I don't. He left. When the money dried up and the legal problem started, he just left. Moved to California, changed his phone number. I haven't heard from him in 3 days." The room was dead silent. Everyone was watching, listening, recording. This was better than reality TV. "So now you want me back?" I asked. "I want you to forgive me. I want a chance to make this right." I looked around the room at all the faces staring at us. Friends, colleagues, neighbors, strangers drawn by the spectacle. Then I looked back at Claire, broken and desperate, and finally understanding the consequences of her choices. "No," I said simply. Claire's legs seemed to give out. She sank into a nearby chair, sobbing openly. "Please, James. I'll do anything. I'll sign any prenup, give up social media, move anywhere you want. Just please give me another chance." The crowd was eating it up. Phones were recording from every angle. This would be all over social media within hours. I walked over to Claire and knelt down beside her chair, speaking quietly enough that the crowd had to strain to hear. 2 years ago, I promised to love you in sickness and in health, for better or worse, until death do us part. You remember that?" She nodded, still crying. "Well, this is worse, and you're the sickness. And as far as I'm concerned, our marriage died the first time you fucked Elliot in our bed." I stood up and addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming tonight. You've witnessed something special, the moment when actions finally meet consequences. Claire here thought she could have her cake and eat it too. She thought she could build her brand on the foundation of our marriage while secretly shopping for an upgrade. She thought she could manipulate the narrative and play the victim when she got caught. I picked up my drink and raised it in a toast. But here's what Claire never understood. The truth always comes out. Lies always catch up to you. And karma is a bitch with a very long memory. The crowd erupted in applause. Claire ran from the room, still sobbing. I smiled and took a sip of my drink. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely happy. The party continued until nearly midnight, with guests congratulating me on my performance and sharing their own stories of betrayal and revenge. The photographer captured it all, and by Sunday morning, videos and photos from the evening were circulating across social media with hashtags like divorce party and karma wins. But I still wasn't done. Sunday morning brought unexpected news. Sarah Chen called me at Omar's apartment, her voice tight with excitement. "James, you need to see the news. Elliot Brennan was arrested in Los Angeles last night." I sat up straighter. "Arrested for what?" "Wire fraud, money laundering, and operating an unlicensed investment scheme. The FBI had been building a case against him for months, apparently. Your tip about his business practices was just the final piece they needed." I felt a surge of satisfaction. "What's the story?" He wasn't just stealing from his influencer clients. He was running a full-scale Ponzi scheme, using new client money to pay old debts while funneling cash into offshore accounts. The feds estimate he stole over $2 million. And Claire? No charges yet, but she's definitely a person of interest. They're looking into whether she knew about the scheme or benefited from it. After Sarah hung up, I sat in Omar's kitchen, drinking coffee and processing the news. Elliot's arrest was the perfect capstone to my revenge campaign. Not only had I exposed him as a fraud, but I'd helped the FBI build their case against him. Claire was truly alone now. No husband, no lover, no family support, no career, and possibly facing federal charges. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. Omar found me an hour later, still sitting at the kitchen table with the same cup of coffee. "You okay, man? You look like someone died." "I'm fine. Great, actually. Everything worked out exactly like I planned." "So why do you look miserable?" I couldn't answer that question because I wasn't sure myself. I'd gotten everything I wanted. Claire was ruined, Elliot was in jail, and everyone knew the truth about what had happened. So why did I feel like something was missing? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is Claire. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to tell you something important. Can we meet? Please?" I showed the message to Omar, who frowned. "Don't do it, James. Nothing good can come from seeing her again." I know. But I was curious despite myself. What could Claire possibly have to say that would matter now? I typed back, 1 hour, Bayfront Park, come alone. Bayfront Park was a public space downtown, busy enough that we'd have witnesses but quiet enough to talk. I arrived early and found a bench overlooking the water, watching boats drift past in the afternoon sun. Claire arrived exactly on time, looking even worse than she had at the party. She'd lost weight, her clothes hung loose on her frame, and she moved like someone carrying an enormous burden. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sitting down on the opposite end of the bench. "What do you want, Claire?" "I wanted to tell you that you were right. About everything. Elliot, the affair, the lies, all of it." "I know I was right. That's not news." She nodded, staring out at the water. "I also wanted to tell you about the FBI." That got my attention. "What about them?" "They think I was part of Elliot's scheme. They think I helped him steal money from his clients." "Did you?" "No, but I benefited from it. The expensive dinners, the hotel rooms, the gifts. It was all stolen money. I just didn't know it at the time." I studied her profile, looking for signs of deception, but Claire looked genuinely broken, stripped of all the artifice and manipulation that had once defined her. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to hurt you, or ruin your reputation, or destroy everything we built together. But you did it anyway." "Yes, I did it anyway." We sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the boats and the seagulls and the tourists taking pictures of the sunset. "I loved you," Claire said finally. "I know you don't believe that, but I did. I still do. You have a funny way of showing it. I was scared of commitment, of being ordinary, of settling for a quiet life when I thought I deserved something bigger and more exciting." "So, you decided to trade up?" "I decided to hedge my bets. Keep you as my safety net while I explored other options." At least she was being honest now. "How did that work out for you?" Claire laughed, but there was no humor in it. "About as well as you'd expect. I lost the best man I ever knew, destroyed my career, alienated my family, and fell for a con artist who was using me the whole time." "Elliot was using you?" "He was using everyone. I was just another mark, another source of income and social media credibility. When the FBI started closing in, he cleaned out his accounts and disappeared. Left me holding the bag." I felt another flicker of sympathy, quickly suppressed. "That's rough. The irony is that I had everything I wanted with you. A man who loved me, a comfortable life, a future worth building. But I convinced myself it wasn't enough. I thought I deserved more." "You deserved exactly what you got." Claire turned to look at me directly, for the first time since she'd arrived. "I know. And I'm not asking for forgiveness, or another chance, or anything else from you. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I lost, and I'm sorry." She stood up to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, you were magnificent. The way you destroyed us both, piece by piece, move by move, it was like watching a master at work. Elliot never saw it coming. Neither did I. I'm a lawyer. Strategy is what I do. No, it was more than that. You were patient, methodical, ruthless. You played a longer game than either of us was capable of understanding." She was right, though I hadn't thought of it in those terms. From the moment I'd discovered her affair, I'd been building a case against her, gathering evidence, identifying weaknesses, planning my attack. "I learned from the best," I said. "You taught me that nice guys finish last. I taught you that people will take advantage of you if you let them." "Same thing." Claire nodded sadly. "I suppose it is." She walked away without looking back, leaving me alone on the bench with my thoughts and the setting sun. That evening, I returned to the condo for the first time since the divorce party. The building manager had called to say Claire had moved out completely, leaving behind only a forwarding address for her security deposit. The place felt different. Emptier, but also cleaner somehow. Like a weight had been lifted. I walked through the rooms, noting what was missing. Claire had taken her clothes, her makeup, her photography equipment, and most of the furniture we'd bought together. What remained was sparse but functional, enough to live on, nothing more. I was examining the bedroom when I found it, an envelope on the dresser with my name written in Claire's handwriting. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a check for $50,000. "James," the letter read, "this is everything I have left from my influencer earnings before Elliot got involved. I know it doesn't make up for what I did to you, but it's something. Use it to start over, or donate it to charity, or burn it if it makes you feel better. I just wanted you to have it. You deserved better than what I gave you. I hope someday you find someone who appreciates what an amazing man you are. Claire." I stared at the check for a long time. $50,000 was more money than I'd expected, but less than I probably deserved. It was also, I realized, Claire's final gesture of surrender. My phone rang. Omar. "How did it go with Claire?" "She apologized, and she gave me money." "How much money?" $50,000. Omar whistled. "That's not nothing." "No, it's not. So what are you going to do now?" I looked around the empty condo, thinking about the question. For months, my entire life had been focused on destroying Claire and Elliot. Now that I'd succeeded, I wasn't sure what came next. "I'm going to cash this check," I said finally. "And then I'm going to figure out how to be happy again." That sounds like a good plan. Yeah, it does. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed for the first time in weeks. The condo was quiet, peaceful, and entirely mine. I made coffee, read the news, and planned my day like a normal person. The Tampa Bay Business Journal's follow-up story about Elliot's arrest was front-page news. Sarah Chen had done excellent work, detailing his criminal scheme and its impact on his victims. My name was mentioned as a local attorney who helped expose the fraud, but I'd managed to avoid becoming the focus of the story. Claire wasn't so lucky. The article included a sidebar about influencers who enabled Brennan's scheme, featuring her photo and a detailed account of her relationship with him. It was professional journalism, but it was also devastating to what remained of her reputation. I felt a twinge of guilt reading it, but not much. Claire had made her choices. These were the consequences. My phone rang. An unknown number. "Is this James Mitchell?" "Yes. This is Detective Rodriguez with the Sarasota Police Department. I'm calling about the Elliot Brennan case." My stomach clenched. "What about it?" "We understand you provided information that helped the FBI build their case against Mr. Brennan. We'd like to interview you as a potential witness." "Of course. When would be convenient?" "How about this afternoon? 2 o'clock at the station? After I hung up, I called Omar to let him know about the interview. It's just routine, he assured me. You helped catch a criminal. They want to document your contribution to the case. What if they ask about my methods, the social media campaign, the party, all of it? You didn't break any laws, James. You exposed the truth about your wife's affair and helped uncover a financial crime. That's not revenge, that's justice. The police interview went smoothly. Detective Rodriguez was professional and thorough, asking detailed questions about my interactions with Elliot and Claire, my discovery of their affair, and my decision to investigate Elliot's business practices. For the record, the detective said near the end of our conversation, your tip was crucial to this case. Without your information, we might never have connected all the pieces. I'm glad I could help. One more question. Do you believe your ex-wife was involved in Mr. Brennan's criminal activities? I considered the question carefully. Despite everything Claire had done to me, I didn't think she was a criminal, just naive and easily manipulated. I think she was a victim, I said finally. She trusted the wrong person and paid the price for it. Detective Rodriguez nodded and closed his notebook. Thank you for your time, Mr. Mitchell. We'll be in touch if we need anything else. Walking out of the police station, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. My role in Elliot's downfall was officially documented and legally protected. Whatever happened next, I'd done the right thing. That evening, I met Omar and his girlfriend Maria for dinner at a new restaurant downtown. It was the first time in months that I'd socialized without an ulterior motive, and it felt strange but good. So what's next for you? Maria asked over dessert. I'm thinking about taking a vacation, maybe traveling somewhere I've never been. That sounds healthy, Omar said. Where are you thinking? Europe, maybe, or Asia? Somewhere far away from Florida and influencers and social media drama. What about the law practice? It'll be here when I get back. And honestly, after everything that's happened, I think I need some time to remember who I am when I'm not plotting revenge against my ex-wife. Omar laughed. Fair point. As we walked back to our cars, Maria pulled me aside. Can I ask you something personal? Sure. Do you regret any of it? The way you handled things with Claire? I thought about her question as we stood under the streetlights of downtown Sarasota. Did I regret destroying Claire's career, exposing her affair, turning her friends against her, orchestrating her public humiliation? No, I said finally. I don't regret it. She made choices that hurt me deeply, and I made choices that held her accountable for those actions. Maybe I went further than I needed to, but I don't regret making sure the truth came out. Even though she's lost everything? She didn't lose everything, Maria. She threw it away. There's a difference. Maria nodded thoughtfully. I suppose there is. That night I sat on my balcony overlooking the Gulf, drinking a beer and thinking about the past few months. My marriage was over, my wife was disgraced, her lover was in federal custody, and I was alone in a condo that felt too big and too quiet. But I was also free from lies, manipulation, and betrayal. Free from pretending to be happy in a relationship that had been slowly poisoning me. Free to build whatever came next on a foundation of truth instead of illusion. My phone buzzed with a notification. Someone had tagged me in a social media post. Against my better judgment, I opened the app. It was a photo from my divorce party, showing me raising a toast while Claire fled the room in tears. The caption read, "When karma comes calling, make sure you're dressed for the occasion. Justice served. Divorce party. Truth wins." The post had thousands of likes and hundreds of comments, most of them praising my handling of the situation. A few criticized me for being too harsh, but they were vastly outnumbered by supporters. I'd become something of a folk hero in the social media world, the wronged husband who'd fought back and won. People were calling me everything from a legend to relationship goals to the king of petty revenge. It was flattering, but also slightly disturbing. I didn't want to be famous for destroying my marriage, even if I'd been in the right. I closed the app and finished my beer, watching the lights of boats drift across the dark water. Tomorrow I would start planning that vacation. Next week, I would return to practicing law. Next month, I would begin figuring out what the rest of my life looked like. But tonight, I was content to sit in the silence and appreciate something I hadn't felt in a very long time: the peace that comes from living honestly. My phone buzzed one more time, a text from an unknown number. "This is Claire. I saw the news about the FBI case. I wanted you to know that I told them the truth about everything. I'm not going to try to minimize my role or blame anyone else. I made my choices, and I'm going to face the consequences. I also wanted to thank you for telling the detective that you thought I was a victim rather than a criminal. You didn't have to do that, and it means more than you know. I hope you find happiness, James. You deserve it. Goodbye." I read the message twice, then deleted it without responding. Claire was right about one thing. I did deserve happiness, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I believed I might actually find it. I raised my empty beer bottle in a final toast to the Gulf breeze and the star-filled sky. "Here's to new beginnings," I said aloud, "and to the courage to start over when the people you trusted most prove unworthy of that trust." The words echoed across the water and disappeared into the night, carrying with them the last remnants of my anger and the first seeds of my hope. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and new possibilities. But tonight, I was exactly where I needed to be, alone but not lonely, wounded but not broken, and finally, completely free. I stood up, gathered my things, and walked inside to begin the rest of my life.